Well, staying in Washington, let's bring in Rina Shah now, political advisor and commentator. Rina, thank you very much for your time. Now, if Republicans control both houses, why has this bill faced such a bumpy ride so far?
The whole reason you're seeing the drama play out the way it is on Capitol Hill with this one big, beautiful bill is because there are razor thin margins that Republicans lead by in both chambers of Congress. These are sort of a sign of the times. This is the hard part about governing when you have to bring together not just your own people, but to broker compromise with the other side. We're seeing that with the Senate right now as the bill is being debated because the Senate Republicans can only afford 3 defections in order to really do what they want to do with this bill, which is get it to the president's desk before July 4th.
And Rina, do you understand the criticism coming from some Democrats and indeed some Republicans?
I think the criticisms we've heard of this legislative behemoth are rightful and just because this is an era in which we see so much jam packed into one piece, again, of legislation that is intended to tackle things like immigration reform, spending, tax cuts. This is all kind of a way for Trump to say to the American people that my people, the Republicans, we're decisive, we're bold, and we want to reshape America's economic and social future from the federal standpoint. Now, where that becomes difficult is because not everybody can agree at the levels of the spending cuts that are being made and where those cuts ought to be made, particularly in the places like healthcare and nutrition. A lot of states across the country have trouble meeting certain standards. I'm talking about poorer states. And so when you shift the burden of things like Medicaid, which again gives healthcare to people that cannot afford it, when you shift billions of dollars of burden to states, you're going to see a lot of people push back and say, my state can't afford that. And that is what we're seeing, the rightful criticisms I just mentioned in Congress.
You mentioned that so much is jammed into this one bill. How risky is it for Trump to put everything he wants into one bill? And what are the chances that it'll pass through the Senate?
Not only was it incredibly politically risky for Trump to do such a massive piece of legislation with the members of his party in both the Senate and the House at this point in time, let's just remember he got seated in the White House again only less than 6 months ago. Starting at the end of January, we started to hear the Trump administration say they wanted to really show a stark contrast to the Biden administration. People, when they look back at Biden's legislative record, they remember things such as infrastructure investments. They remember things such as trying to combat China's influence with the CHIPS Act, for example, so semiconductors. Now we're in a new era where we are starting to hear from this administration what their priorities are. And when their priorities in this bill seem to be pushing back on things like renewable energy, solar panels, for example, and embracing things like fossil fuels are sort of taking a step backward, it seems. You're not quite sure what to make of it. And so you're hearing from people within Trump's own party that this was not the right way to go about it. And it may very well be torpedoed in the Senate because of the very fact that there are Republicans willing to step out of line with this president.
Rina, thank you very much for your thoughts and analysis. Rina Shah there, speaking to us from Washington.
Thanks for having me.